the vaccine, the vaccine, the vaccine. Semi-funny dad joke. The vaccine. Whichever way sounded best, go with that one. 30th of March, we collected 33,600 vaccine doses in Trinidad. The catch though with the 33,600 is that these are the vaccines that require 2 doses. So when you hear 33,600, what you have to bear in mind is that it can only vaccinate 16,800 people. There's another catch with it though. These vaccines are going to expire on the 31st of May, and the 2 doses must be given between 8 and 12 weeks apart from each other. We can give everyone first doses and get the first dose vaccination up to 33,600, and that'll be great. But then, if we do not get the next shipment of vaccines on time within the 6 weeks, we'd end up with a bunch of people with the first dose and unable to finish the actual full regime of the vaccination. And that's not really a good thing. An opposition MP proposed that idea, and he was pointing out that there are other countries that are doing the first dose first kind of plan. The UK, Germany, Ireland, and even the US is considering it, at least some parts in the US, where you dose the dose that you have now. And it kind of makes sense to a certain extent. You get to dose as many people in your community as possible, and by the time the other shipment comes in, when we give everyone that second dose, we'll have a greater number of people fully vaccinated. But that is hoping that the other shipment comes in on time and there's no delay, which we'd hope there isn't. We got these vaccines through the COVAX program. The COVAX program is there to try to help the poorer countries or the countries that are a bit smaller to get vaccine equity. That's the way they phrase it. COVAX is run by 3 organizations: the Gavi Institute, CEPI, and WHO. We know what WHO is, the World Health Organization. That one is pretty simple. But the Gavi Institute, or Gavi, and CEPI seem a bit new. Both of these are organizations that try to pull together a group of various people, and the main focus of both of those organizations is to try to get vaccines out to as many people as possible. The thing that makes those organizations seem to be a bit fishy to some is that both of those organizations are funded and founded by Bill Gates and his Bill and Melinda Foundation. That's not a problem, but to the conspiracy theorists, it would sound fishy. The guy is ever present. What am I going to say? And what the COVAX program is trying to do is bring about some vaccine equity. What that is that poorer countries may not have been able to afford to buy this vaccine. The vaccine is kind of expensive. So what they would do for poorer countries is they'll work out something to be able to finance the entirety of the vaccine, so that even if a country is poor, they would still be able to become vaccinated. The other side of it is that for small countries that may not have open negotiation with the different places that make these vaccines with the vaccine manufacturers, that they would be able to open up an avenue of negotiation so that these smaller nations would be able to buy the vaccine. And that's what we did. We bought these vaccines. We paid for this with a loan from the IDB. That's the Inter-American Development Bank. We already have a loan out with them for $125 million US, and the intention of this loan is to help with various country building things. And now we added on top of that loan the price of this vaccine, which is about $148,000 US. Some people wonder, why do we keep taking loans as a country? Why don't we just buy it with our money? Well, I've heard some solutions to that, and some solutions would go like, we are short on US, so the loan gives us some quick access to US dollars, and in delaying financial matters, some people suggest that it's smarter to buy from loans instead of using out all of your current savings. Another reason could also be that it allows you to spend outside of the budget that you already planned for your country. You choose which one it may be. We bought the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's the Oxford vaccine. That's the one that England is using. I mean Oxford, England, of course. But it's created, or well, rather it's produced in South Korea. And in the UK, they have found 7 deaths related to blood clots that they're unsure if it's exactly because of the vaccine. But they keep saying that the vaccine's benefits still outweigh the dangers of it. And when they say that, it makes you feel like there may be some truth to the whole blood clot and vaccine business. But maybe they're still correct, because maybe the benefits of the vaccine still outweigh the dangers of it. And that could be harder to notice when we have the information overload that we have now. Information at scale is a strange thing for many people to handle, because one person suffering with one thing in a community doesn't seem too significant. But if every person from every community that suffers with that is able to go online and build an entire community around it, that's going to make it seem like a much bigger splash than just one person in one community. And that's the problem with information and scale as we have it now. Everyone who has any negatives from this vaccine is able to get their information out there. The math in the original contemplation was a bit awkward, but I'm not the math springer, so that's fine. It still tells that smallpox had a 1 in a million chance of killing someone. That's actually pretty high, and it was somewhere up to 1,000 out of a million people would have pretty bad negative side effects. And the permanent vaccine passport, the permanent vaccine scar that you see on many older people's shoulder, that's exactly where that came from, the smallpox vaccine. There are other vaccines that leave scars too, but the smallpox scar was one of the larger ones. That was pretty much more obvious. The last known case of smallpox in the open was 1977 in Somalia. So, although yes, the danger of the vaccine was always present, the danger of the disease was mitigated because we weighed the pros and cons of the vaccine. It's all about risk management. Which do we think is more risky? And it is very true that COVID really isn't that dangerous to younger people. The younger people get, the less dangerous COVID gets to them. And in most children school age, it's actually seen that the flu is more dangerous to them than COVID. It actually does worse to them than COVID. And I mean, that's not any reassurance to the teachers who have to stay in school with them, but I guess it could be reassuring to the parents who may want to send their children anyway. In the risk management, we could decide now to vaccinate those that are most at risk, the elderly, those with the pre-existing conditions, and that may be a good idea. And some countries are doing that. Germany, and especially with the news of, well, blood clots, many countries are kind of dialing back on the use of the vaccine and suggesting it mostly for those at risk. But there's a problem even in that, because vaccines aren't cures. We've known that all the time. And people who have gotten vaccinated can still get back the disease. There are reports of some nurses who have gotten back COVID after they have been vaccinated. A vaccine isn't a cure, and leaving a whole large group of unvaccinated people who mingle freely with each other is leaving, as it were, a petri dish, an area for the virus to incubate, an area for the virus to multiply. And when the virus multiplies, it has the potential to mutate and make another strain. And then that other strain could wipe through people who have already been vaccinated. So there is a case for vaccinating everybody and just finish with it. Everybody gets the vaccine, we all feel better and we all go on. But if I'm young and healthy, I may be thinking, the risk of this vaccine doing me something bad may be higher than the risk of COVID actually harming me. But then as a country, we now have to think the risk of leaving all these young people unvaccinated is increasing the risk on the elderly people. And strange enough, most of the rulers of most of the countries are elderly. So they're the at-risk population. Now we see a place where younger people and their freedom and their health and their willingness to take a risk is placed at odds with the older people and managing the entire country as a whole, because maybe we do not want all our old people getting sick. That's not a good idea. I do not want to be the one to have to manage that, but somebody will. And I'm wondering sometimes though, when I see many Trinidadians and we're worried about other places in the world that may be forcing vaccines onto people, and you need a vaccine in order to do this and you need a vaccine in order to do that. And I'm thinking, but that's already Trinidad law. We are required to be vaccinated before we enter the school system. It's written in the law. And I mean, there may be some arguments that that shouldn't be so, but I don't think it will change, and it already is the law. So if perchance some people may want to force this vaccine on the Trinidad population, I don't think it would be a very difficult thing, because you just require them to be vaccinated before they enter school, and voila, everyone gets vaccinated.